All right, welcome. We are going on the record with the Oakland Police Department once again. We have, thank you for the second time, Deputy Chief Bridget and Lindsay here, and we have a new person, not so new, you've been here since, I believe, April. Bridget Cook, who is our victim specialist. Let's go straight to you, DC. Talk to me about that. I know this is a position that you wanted for a long time.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
So basically, we're so glad to have Bridget. She serves as a victim liaison for the police department, victims and/or victims' families. She has been very instrumental in making sure that we are responsive, making sure that she's communicating the wonderful types of resources and services that the city has to offer to victims and/or their families after they've been a victim of a crime.
Why was it important to have that role at the Oakland Police Department?
It's important to make sure that we're delineating between the officers' roles and responsibilities, and then the roles and responsibilities as it relates to the community as a whole. That additional attention to detail, that additional layer of conversation, or just the type of feedback that's that's really pertinent for people who may need that extra information or that extra empathy and care and concern, so that certain problems or issues or traumas that need to be addressed are addressed. And so Bridget has came in, she's already had a really wonderful role and relationship with people in the community, but she's came in and filled those shoes and hit the ground running with just making sure that victims are getting a voice and they're getting the follow-up services that they need and deserve.
So Bridget, you're new to the Oakland Police Department, but not new to the city of Oakland, so you're familiar with a lot of things that goes on in Oakland. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, previously I was the Chief of Staff for Councilmember Lynette McElhaney for District 3, so I did that for about 8 years. And then prior to that, I did a lot of volunteer work for violence prevention, in particular with Soldiers Against Violence Everywhere. I was one of the key members there. Also one of the founders of the Violence Prevention Coalition, and still working with that group. And so this was a natural fit for me, having worked with the Family Support Advocate Task Force, which is comprised of family members who have all lost loved ones. And they actually advocated for me to get the position because of the work that I had been doing with them for about 3 years prior to this.
So what exactly do you do? What exactly is a victim specialist? Since you're the first person in this role, you can define it any way you like, but what does it actually mean?
Well, OPD had a victim liaison prior to that, but then they engaged, I believe it was 2018, 2019, with a process called the Collective Healing Initiative. And with that, they wanted to really drill down into what it was the community felt was needed and how to better that relationship with community as related to victims. And so they worked with BayWAR, CYO, Youth Alive, and they came up with some criteria that they believe would make for a much better experience or better personnel working with victims. And so out of that came the initiative to hire the victim specialist, and that's the role that I took on.
Now, Chief, unfortunately, we've had 75 homicides. We've lost 75 people in the city of Oakland. Yeah. And this year you have Bridget. Has that been helpful? Is that a different, unique tactic that we have at Oakland Police Department?
Yes, it's been very helpful as we look to be more progressive in how we interact and respond to the needs of the community. Her role has been just very instrumental in just helping our department identify additional things that we can do better as a police department and do better in terms of how we service the community. So I'm absolutely excited to have her here. She already, like she just previously stated, had relationships which she has continued to fortify, but also help us be able to have better partnerships and relationships with some of the other groups that she's already been a part of. So that's been very, very important. And then she also mentioned collective healing, which I think is important because there is a component in the collective healing initiative. It provides a training to our police officers and also our community members, and there is going to be an opportunity for the community members and the police officers to be together in that training, which I think is very important because it could lead to better opportunities for robust conversations and relationship building. So that is a very important initiative, this collective healing. It is, we call it vicarious trauma training. because we recognize that people in the community, particularly as you mentioned, that 75 lives were lost, but there are people that are affected by that loss. And there's a certain trauma that is connected to that loss as well. And our officers also, engage in this trauma as well, because they're having to deal, with a loss of life, and then also, helping people pick up the pieces after, the loss of life has occurred. So I'm just so excited about just the more things that's going to come with Bridget and her role, and then just some of the projects that she has that's going to occur for this city. So.
Speaking of which, Bridget, let's go straight in. What are some of the projects that you're working on?
Well, we've already had a significant win. Really excited this week, our privacy screens came in. And so that was an ask from family members in terms of having some type of barrier to shield their loved ones when they have passed away. As the investigation is continuing, to make sure that there's not onlookers who can see their loved ones. And so thank you to Deputy Chief in terms of really promoting that and making sure we have resources to purchase those. They came in literally yesterday. And so we're excited about being able to get that out into the community. And then there are other things that we're working on, like our tow policy and other types of things that the families really would like to see happen. And the police department has been amazing in being open to these new ideas and figuring out how to put them into practice as quickly as possible.
Some people are just wondering, a tow policy. How would a tow policy have to do anything to do with violent crime? Can you go into that? Or?
Yeah, so if a crime happens and the vehicle has to be towed for evidence or some other reason, working to make sure that the family members who are already traumatized and dealing with so much, we want to make that process easier for them to be able to retrieve the vehicle back.
And Chief Lindsay, talk to me about, Bridget carries a lot of hats. And it's not just always about homicides, it's about other issues as well, correct?
Yes, that's true. We have, people who are shot who also require services. And then also with our missing persons investigations, she's been very helpful with just some of the high profile cases that we've had. And just having that relationship that hadn't been there before. So she's been able to come in and just really lend her expertise and just, providing people a roadmap to different resources and services that they could have, when they're going through some of these difficult times.
And I know both of you were at the Chiefs rally, Stand Up for a Safe Oakland at Lake Merritt. Bridget, I know you had a hand on that, dealing with a lot of getting the poster boards and everything about that. So this is something that's really ingrained and rooted and means a lot to you, correct?
It does. And of the group I was talking about earlier, the Family Support Advocates, almost all of them were there. All of them were mothers who've lost children. Yeah. And so it's very important. And they, in talking to them, asked, well, why were they there? And they're like, this is someplace I had to be. Not that I wanted to be there, like I had to be here because I don't want to see this happen to any other mother, any other father, because we're going through it. And so it is definitely ingrained in part of what I believe in and who I am.
And I'm sure you're going to be inundated with a lot of people asking about resources and those kind of things. And it's just about things that people are eligible for. Is there a time frame? Is there a time limit that a person has to do something within the time of a crime occurs?
So with the Cal VCB, you have 7 years if you were injured or the threat of an injury. But the key thing is you have to get the process started. You have to file a police report because that's the only way that you can be eligible for compensation, or it starts the ball rolling. And then from there we can figure out what your needs are and then how to get you set up with the right organization to get you what it is that you and your family needs. And it is a lot broader than what people think it is. It's not necessarily just the victim. Sometimes it's the victim's families, it's their children, it could be their spouse who was in the house at the time. So by starting the conversation, that allows us to figure out where do you stand and how do we get you the help that you need. And sometimes people are not in the right frame of mind at the time. It may take them a year or two. That's why there's a 7-year period.
And Chief, just to show the progress, what happened before you had Bridget? I know she said there was someone before, but not really as in a robust position. What was it like prior to?
We still, as a department, would make an effort to try to, provide services, but when you have a significant amount of homicides and shootings to investigate, or even missing person cases to investigate, sometimes the extra attention to detail or care gets lost because the investigators are focused on solving the crime. And so just having someone there who has that role to, or the capacity really, to provide that service, or that, that extra phone call, or I can meet with you, or I can, make sure you get, walk through the process, is so important because, sure, an officer can hand you a brochure and say, read these instructions. But to have a human being there that's actually not only here's the instructions, but I'm going to walk you through it. And if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call for follow-up. That's the piece that's missing. And that's that human connection that we're getting because we have her in this role. And we're hoping to grow it too. So we're looking for grants, we're looking for opportunities to add to her role, so she can have someone to help her do, some of the work, so that we can expand it and make it better, and make it more accessible to more people.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Bridget. You've got a lot going on right there. I mean,
yeah.
So tell me all of the different aspects or different parts of your job that you reach. I know we have, you said you're dealing with missing persons and you're dealing with homicides, but is there more?
Yes. So as Deputy Chief just mentioned, if someone was a victim of an assault, whether it is a hit and run or whether it was shooting, I've already started working with some of those victims. If you were the victim of a robbery and you got injured, that's also something that we want to touch. There's a lot of different folks who are victimized, and there are some because unfortunately we in the inner city sometimes get inured to violence. We don't even realize that we're being traumatized. And so it's opening up and having the conversation about you experienced something and it's causing you trauma, or it's causing your children trauma, and here are some resources for you. So it's not always financial. Sometimes if you need some additional counseling, you need some support, you need to be able to go and talk with someone, we have those resources available through VCB. And so part of my role has been going out to community meetings and talking to folks and going, hey, you've been dealing with this stuff. Here's an option for you to consider. And I've already had a couple of folks that I never thought about it that way, but you're right.
How's been the reception from people, victims and their families? How's that been for you?
It's gratitude. I think folks are happy to have a third party that they can talk to. The investigators are very, very busy, unfortunately. And so I'm here as an option if you can't get through it or whatever's happening. I can be your liaison. I am your bridge, which is actually part of the mission statement for the department, for the position, which is to be this bridge between the community and the police department. And as I tell them, I'll run around the building for you. Tell me what you need.
Yeah, she does it. Yeah, she does.
and Chief, like you said, you would like to build it out because there's a lot of people out there that are in need of help.
Yes.
That the victim specialist would help. And you said you're looking at grants, but what else? Is there anything that anyone else can do? Is there something that people can help? Is there people can volunteer?
Yep. Yes, absolutely. Bridget is the person to reach out to if you would like to volunteer. We have different advocacy groups that's been working with the police department for years. Even when I was an area commander, there was advocacy groups that would respond to homicide scenes that may have been a really sensitive or complex situation. And so we're just looking to get more people, to help us out, to volunteer. We can get you trained up. We can put you as a part of the team just to do more outreach and to do more work. But really just when people come together and are supportive of one another and are just looking to help one another in different ways, it may not, like you said, Bridget said earlier, it may not be financial. It may just be, I've had an experience, I've gone through this before, and you and I can talk, you and I can relate, or have that support, so connecting, family members with other family members that may have experienced trauma, and some may just be a little bit more seasoned and have found different ways to cope or different ways to, seek justice or relief. And so just bringing people together and having that support has gone it's been very tremendous. It's gone a long way. And so having her here and bringing those groups together and bringing the police department together has been very helpful. We are anticipating to keep this going on for many more years to come. But we definitely feel like there was something missing, and so I'm glad that she's here And like I said, I want to expand it and continue to, bring in more volunteers if we can.
And Bridget, I know you said a person has 7 years to file a claim, but they also have to file a report first. And it's a lot of trauma. People are dealing with a lot of different things when they're having a situation. What is one of the first things that you suggest people do, besides file a report, to basically walk them through how to get in touch with you, such a situation, and to make sure they have everything they need when they do get in touch with you?
Well, the first thing, if they're contacting me, of course, email or phone call or come to PAB. I've had that happen as well. And I think just having the conversation, getting an assessment of what's going on and what are your needs. And then from there, we can figure out what the next steps are.
Chief, how are the investigators dealing with Bridget? Are they happy to have that extra moral support? A person can actually say, hey, can you make this call for me this week because I can't?
Oh, they love having her here. I'm like, I hope we don't burn her out. But no, they absolutely love having her here because, most of us in this profession, we are well-intentioned. We want to do the right thing. We want to solve the case. And we also want to make sure that people are getting the support and services that they need. And so that's where she comes in, just to have that balance, because it is difficult. And I think that the investigators oftentimes would feel, just feel bad. I'm not able to do, as much as I would like to in terms of reaching out or being responsive to maybe answering questions, as it relates to services. And now we have this person here that fills that role. So she's been well received. I bug her too. I do. And she's always responsive. And as you can see, it's just a class act, very intelligent. She came in hitting the ground running. She already had her own plan written out. So, kudos to you for that. We're blessed to have her.
Bridget, was it a tough transition? I know you already had your own thing going on, but was it a tough transition to go from one side of the city to OPD?
It was different. Working within city government, luckily I had the 8 years experience working with the council members, so it wasn't as dramatic a change as it would have been if I had come from my previous job directly into this. So it wasn't that bad. And I definitely had already known the deputy chief because she was the area commander when I worked with the council member, as well as quite a number of the folks that were here already. So I came in already kind of knowing some people, and they already knew me, which I think kind of helped in the transition, because it wasn't a new person coming in trying to make these changes, because there are some changes that need to be made as we go to a trauma-informed, victim-centered type of police force, which, again, as Deputy Chief has been championing this from even before. But it is something that we have to do to not just have a victim specialist, but the entire department be victim-centered and trauma-informed, and that's what we're working towards.
What exactly does that mean, trauma-informed? Break it down for me.
So trauma-informed really, as she talked about earlier, is understanding vicarious trauma, right? So you need to understand how trauma impacts yourself. There are neurological as well as emotional, behavioral issues that come from being traumatized. And so we're working, there's a training that's going to be rolled out for all the officers so they understand how trauma impacts them. And then we're going to follow up with a training that talks about how trauma impacts other victims and what to look for, what are the cues, so when they see certain behaviors, they can understand, oh, that's based off of the trauma that they have endured, and so be able to adjust accordingly. And really excited about that training coming through. And we're working in conjunction with Youth Alive and with other partners to make sure that it is community informed when it goes forward.
Is that important to you, Chief? I know you personally, so I know it is, but is that important?
Yes, it really is important, and I love the training. I've sat down with Bridget and Barbara DeSalva, and they just kind of informed me what collective healing was all about. And like one of the books I encourage a lot of my investigators to read is written by Sean Ginwright. It's called Hope and Healing. And it's actually an empirical study that was done here in our city, the city of Berkeley, and I believe San Francisco. And it looked at trauma and the effects that it has on the people who live in the community and also the police officers as well. And so I just think it's important for us to educate ourselves about what trauma is and being able to recognize it not only in ourselves, but as public servants, recognizing it in other people, and so that we can be able to provide even a better service towards people who have been, either victims of trauma or who have been exposed to trauma. So it's really important for us to be educated so that we can be, have a better relationship and really, provide the type of service that's so desperately needed.
Bridget, I'm going to wrap it up here. Do you have anything else you want to say or add? I did not ask you to talk about your position. Get more people in to help volunteer. What can we do?
No, you're good. Thank you.
I twisted Bridget's arm to do this, so you can see she wants to be over and done with. Chief, what about yourself?
No, we can use the volunteers, and we do encourage those who have been, victims of violent crimes, or if you have suffered a loss of a loved one, to come out and join us in the support groups. We're, working to do a lot of things better. We talked about, putting together Christmas cards to send out to families during the holidays, and we can use the volunteers, we can use the help. So it's just so many things that we can do together as a community, instead of just, kind of sitting by and just kind of watching things unfold, but be a part of that solution. So we're looking forward. Please reach out to Bridget and or myself if you would like to volunteer or be a part of this, because we're going to be doing some great things in this coming year and next year. So reach out.
Now you have something for us, Bridget? I knew it.
There we go.
Yes, now I have something. We recently were contacted by a community organization out of South County, and they're offering some services to our families. And so in addition to volunteers, if you have services that you can provide, because again, we have traumatized families, they have loss of resources, particularly if the breadwinner of the family is no longer with them. So if you have resources or something that you'd also like to share with the families, please contact me and we can talk about that as well.
All right, so before everyone blow you up, how do you want them to contact you?
So my phone number is 510-238-6790, or you can also reach me at bcook@oaklandca.gov.
All right, we'll put it up there. Make sure everyone has all your information. I thank you, ladies, very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
As we went on the record, we will see you in 2 weeks when we have Chief Armstrong back here in the hot seat. Thank you.